I never thought I'd become TikTok famous at 62, especially not as the villain. But when my daughter-in-law Ashley accidentally posted the unedited 27-minute recording last week, everything changed. The same recording that showed her coaching my son on what to say, mocking my stories, and strategically planning which parts of our dinner conversation would perform best for her toxic mother-in-law series. For 8 months, Ashley had been secretly recording our family dinners, chopping up my words to create a fictional narrative where I was some kind of monster. Each carefully edited video painted me as controlling, manipulative, passive-aggressive, everything a modern woman should reject. The comments were brutal. Thousands of strangers calling me a narcissist, sharing horror stories about their own terrible mothers-in-law, praising Ashley for being brave enough to expose family toxicity. But here's what Ashley didn't know when she built her social media empire on lies about me. I'd been documenting everything too. Every dinner, every interaction, every time she pointed that phone at me. And unlike her carefully crafted fiction, my evidence showed exactly what kind of person would destroy a family for TikTok fame and sponsored content deals. The series, Surviving. My toxic mother-in-law had made Ashley internet famous and legitimately wealthy. Brand partnerships with therapy apps, self-care products, even a meal kit service, all paying her thousands to promote their products as tools for surviving difficult family relationships. She was literally getting rich by painting me as the villain in her manufactured drama. What really stung was discovering she'd turned our most intimate family moments into content. The time I cried telling her about my mother's battle with dementia became a video about emotional manipulation tactics. The afternoon I spent teaching her to make David's favorite birthday cake was edited into evidence of me forcing domestic labor expectations on her. Even my excitement about becoming a grandmother someday was twisted into proof that I was pressuring them to have children. Update. Thanks for all the support on my last post. Several people asked how I even found out about the videos since I avoid social media. My neighbor's daughter, Emma, showed me on her phone when she recognized me at the grocery store. That was a surreal moment. Do you think I should have confronted Ashley immediately instead of gathering evidence first? Ashley married my son David 3 years ago, and I genuinely tried to welcome her into our family. She was bubbly, ambitious, working as a social media manager at some tech startup downtown, always talking about content creation and building authentic connections with followers. I didn't understand the terminology, but I appreciated her enthusiasm. The courtship had been whirlwind. They met on a dating app, were engaged within 8 months, married 6 months after that. I should have been concerned about the speed, but David seemed so happy. Ashley was beautiful, educated, ambitious, everything I thought he deserved. When she started joining our family traditions, I was thrilled to have another woman in the family. The first warning sign should have been how she documented everything. Every family dinner included multiple phone angles, ring lights she'd set up claiming they were just for better family photos, and constant requests for me to repeat stories about David's childhood or share cooking tips. She'd get so excited when I'd tell her about my grandmother's pierogies recipe or embarrassing stories from David's high school baseball days. I felt flattered. Here was this young woman who seemed genuinely interested in our family history, asking detailed questions about traditions I thought nobody cared about anymore. When she'd encourage me to elaborate on stories or give more specific cooking advice, I assumed she was just being thorough, maybe planning to surprise David with his favorite childhood meal. Ashley had this way of making every conversation feel like an interview. She'd ask leading questions about my parenting philosophy, my thoughts on modern relationships, my opinions about career versus family balance. At the time, I thought she was genuinely trying to understand our family dynamics. I even appreciated how attentive she seemed, how she remembered details from previous conversations and followed up on them. Looking back, I realize every conversation was a mining operation. Every family anecdote, every piece of motherly advice, every moment where I tried to connect with her, she was calculating how to package it for maximum dramatic impact. But at the time, I thought she was just an enthusiastic new family member. The dynamic shifted around last Christmas. Ashley started making subtle comments about feeling overwhelmed by family expectations. She'd mention how exhausting it was to constantly navigate family politics, or how she felt judged for ordering takeout instead of cooking elaborate meals like I did. I'd immediately reassure her that we loved her exactly as she was, that there was no pressure to change anything about herself. Those reassurances became weapons. In her videos, my attempts to comfort her were edited into evidence of my manipulative behavior. When I said, "You don't need to cook like me, we order pizza half the time anyway," she cut it to make it sound like I was criticizing her domestic skills. When I offered to teach her my pierogi recipe because she'd specifically asked about it, she framed it as me forcing traditional gender roles on a modern woman. David started acting differently too. He'd get this tense expression whenever Ashley mentioned feeling stressed about family dynamics. Not exactly protective, more like he was walking through a minefield. I assumed they were dealing with normal newlywed adjustment issues, figuring out how to balance his family relationships with his marriage. The changes were gradual but noticeable. David stopped calling me just to chat. Our weekly coffee dates became monthly, then stopped altogether. When I'd text him funny memes or articles I thought he'd enjoy, his responses became increasingly brief. I chalked it up to him being busy with work and marriage. But now I understand Ashley was systematically poisoning our relationship behind the scenes. I had no idea Ashley was systematically building a narrative where I was the villain and she was the suffering victim. Every Sunday dinner was being carefully recorded, analyzed for content potential, and edited into ammunition for her growing social media empire. The TikTok series launched in February with videos titled things like When Your Mael Questions Every Life Choice and Surviving Family Dinners with a Narcissist. The first video hit 3 million views in 4 days. Ashley had found her niche, the relatable young wife trapped with impossible in-laws. I discovered this completely by accident. Emma, my neighbor's 16-year-old daughter, was buying energy drinks at King Soopers when she saw me in the checkout line. She did this double take, then approached hesitantly with her phone. "Excuse me, are you Ashley Rodriguez's mother-in-law?" she asked, showing me her TikTok feed. I had absolutely no idea what she meant until she showed me the videos. There I was, freeze-framed in Ashley's content with dramatic music and text overlays labeling me as manipulative and controlling. Video. After video of Ashley tearfully describing how I criticized everything she did, made passive-aggressive comments about her career, constantly undermined her relationship with David. The production value was impressive, I had to admit. Ashley used professional editing software, dramatic music, strategic lighting, and carefully chosen screenshots to create a compelling narrative. She'd even created custom graphics with quotes attributed to me, taken so far out of context they were essentially fiction. The worst part was hearing my own voice saying things that sounded terrible out of context. In one video, you could hear me saying, "That's not how we do things in this family," but Ashley had edited out the part where I was explaining our dishwasher loading system because she'd specifically asked for efficiency tips. Another clip featured me saying David's never going to be happy if you keep this up. What viewers didn't hear was that we were discussing her workaholic tendencies, and I was encouraging her to set better boundaries with her demanding boss because David was worried about her stress levels and lack of sleep. Ashley had become a master editor, transforming genuine care and family conversations into evidence of toxicity. Each video ended with her giving advice about protecting yourself from narcissistic family members, positioning herself as an expert survivor of emotional abuse. The comments were devastating. Thousands of people calling me a monster, sharing their own stories about terrible mothers-in-law, suggesting Ashley should cut contact entirely. Some recommended she get David into therapy to help him recognize how toxic his family was. Others praised her for being brave enough to expose family abuse patterns. What hurt most was reading comments from young women saying Ashley's videos helped them recognize similar patterns in their own families. They were making major life decisions, cutting contact with parents, ending relationships, based on Ashley's fictional portrayal of our family dynamics. But discovering Ashley was profiting from this changed everything. The videos had accumulated over 10 million views combined, and she'd parlayed that success into legitimate brand partnerships. Mental health apps, meditation subscriptions, meal delivery services, all paying Ashley substantial fees to promote their products as essential tools for surviving toxic family relationships. She was making serious money by systematically destroying my reputation and manipulating my son against his own family. Her most successful video, titled "The Day My Mill Made Me Cry at Dinner," had earned her a $15,000 sponsorship deal with a therapy app. The crying was actually Ashley tearing up while I told her about my mother's dementia diagnosis, but she'd edited it to make it look like I'd said something cruel. My first instinct was immediate confrontation, but something told me to document everything first. I started screenshotting every video, every comment, every sponsored post. I reached out to my friend Carol, whose daughter Sarah practices media law, to understand what legal options might exist. Meanwhile, Ashley's content production intensified. The series expanded from weekly videos to almost daily posts. She developed an entire brand around being the perfect wife, maintaining her sanity while dealing with impossible in-laws. She even launched merchandise, t-shirts saying "Boundary Goddess" and "Surviving Family Toxicity" since 2024. Her follower count exploded from 12,000 to over 2 million in just 6 months. She quit her day job to focus on content creation full-time, signed with a talent management agency, and started doing sponsored posts for major brands. The toxic mother-in-law narrative had literally become her career. David was completely absorbed in her narrative. He started skipping Sunday dinners, responding to my texts with minimal answers, acting distant and uncomfortable during our rare interactions. Ashley had successfully convinced him that his own mother was the primary threat to his mental health and marriage stability. I tried addressing this directly once, asking David if everything was okay between us. He gave me this rehearsed response about setting healthy boundaries and protecting his marriage from negative influences. The language was so clinical, so unlike how David normally spoke, that I knew Ashley had coached him on what to say. The breaking point came during what I thought was just another family dinner 3 weeks ago. Ashley seemed particularly animated, asking leading questions about David's childhood, my parenting philosophy, my opinions about modern relationships. Her phone was positioned strategically as always, but her questions felt more calculated than usual. When I mentioned noticing David seemed stressed lately, she kept pushing me to elaborate with increasing specificity. When I expressed concern about her working 70-hour weeks, she encouraged me to really explain why I felt that way, what specifically worried me about her schedule. I realized later she was running low on organic content and needed fresh material to maintain her posting schedule and keep sponsors interested. She was actively trying to provoke me into saying something particularly inflammatory for her next viral video. By this point, I'd started deliberately being extra careful about what I said, knowing everything was being recorded. I would speak slowly, think before responding, and make sure my tone stayed neutral and caring. I was essentially performing being a good mother-in-law while gathering my own evidence of her manipulation tactics. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was now performing authenticity while she performed victimhood, both of us aware we were being recorded, both calculating our words for different audiences. Update. The response has been overwhelming. Many of you asked about David's initial reaction to discovering the truth. Let's just say watching your wife mock your family while strategizing about profit margins was a wake-up call he wasn't prepared for. Should family loyalty have made him more skeptical of Ashley's claims from the beginning? Everything collapsed when Ashley made the fatal mistake that ended her influencer career. Last Thursday evening, instead of uploading her usual carefully edited content, she accidentally published the entire unedited 27-minute recording from our most recent family dinner. The technical explanation came out later. She'd been experimenting with TikTok's new auto-publish feature for her scheduled content calendar. She'd uploaded the raw footage to her drafts folder for editing, but somehow marked it for immediate publication instead of the polished version she'd been working on. By the time she realized her mistake 3 hours later, the video had already been viewed by thousands of her followers and screen recorded by dozens of them. I was at book club discussing The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo when my phone started buzzing incessantly. Sarah, my friend's lawyer daughter, texted urgently telling me to check TikTok immediately. Emma knocked on my door at 9 p.m. asking if I was okay because everyone's talking about the Ashley video. The unedited footage was absolutely damning. Viewers could hear Ashley coaching David before I arrived, telling him exactly which topics to bring up and how to respond to my answers. They watched her strategically positioning her phone for optimal angles, adjusting lighting, even practicing different facial expressions while I was in the bathroom. Most devastating was hearing her real personality when she thought recording had stopped. She made cruel jokes about my outfit, calling my cardigan aggressively beige, and wondering aloud how David survived growing up with such a basic suburban mom. She mocked the childhood stories I'd shared about David, doing exaggerated impressions of my voice while planning how to edit my words for maximum dramatic impact. The video showed our entire conversation in proper context. When I expressed concern about David's work stress, viewers could see I was being a caring mother, not a controlling manipulator. When I offered cooking advice, the footage clearly showed Ashley specifically requesting it, not me forcing unwanted opinions on her. Most shocking was hearing Ashley explicitly strategize about which conversation segments would perform best on TikTok and which sponsors might be interested in different angles of manufactured family drama. She talked about potentially reaching out to therapy apps with a generational trauma angle or pitching meal kit services with a breaking free from food guilt narrative. She even calculated engagement rates out loud, predicting which emotional beats would generate the most comments and shares. At one point, she mentioned wanting to provoke me into crying because authentic tears always go viral, and she was hoping to hit 5 million views on her next video. The internet's reaction was swift and absolutely brutal. The same commenters who had called me toxic were now horrified by Ashley's calculated manipulation. Her comment sections filled with people feeling deceived and used. Several viral response videos emerged breaking down exactly how Ashley had edited conversations to create completely false narratives. YouTube creators started making expose videos about Ashley's tactics, using her own footage to demonstrate how social media manipulation works. One video called How TikTok Influencers Manufacture Drama for Money got 12 million views in 2 days, using Ashley as the primary case study. The business consequences started within hours. 3 major sponsors canceled their contracts with Ashley within 48 hours, demanding refunds of payments made for previous campaigns. BetterHelp, Calm, and HelloFresh all issued public statements distancing themselves from her content. Her talent management company dropped her immediately. TikTok suspended her account pending investigation of her content practices. The personal fallout was even worse. David had been slowly developing doubts about Ashley's version of events over the past month. He'd noticed inconsistencies in her stories, felt uncomfortable with how she talked about me when we weren't around, and started questioning whether his mother was really as manipulative as Ashley claimed. He'd also started paying attention to our actual interactions versus Ashley's descriptions of them. When Ashley would complain about something I'd allegedly said or done, David's memory of the same events often didn't match her narrative. He'd begun keeping mental notes of these discrepancies. Watching the unedited video confirmed all his growing suspicions. He heard his wife mocking his family, witnessed her strategizing about exploiting their personal relationships for profit, saw her creating fictional drama for internet fame and sponsor revenue. But what hurt him most was realizing how thoroughly she'd manipulated his perception of his own mother. Their confrontation that night was apparently explosive. Ashley initially tried claiming the recording was somehow taken out of context. The irony was completely lost on her, but the evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. She then attempted to argue that her feelings about our family dynamics were genuine, even if her presentation methods were questionable. When that didn't work, she shifted to attacking David, claiming he was choosing his toxic family over his wife, that he was proving her point about how dysfunctional our relationships were. She even tried to record their argument on her phone, presumably for future content, which was when David completely lost it. David packed his belongings and came to stay with me that same evening. When he arrived at my door with 2 suitcases and red eyes, the first thing he said was an apology. Not for Ashley's behavior, but for doubting me, for letting someone else define our relationship, for being so easily manipulated against his own family. Sarah reviewed all my documentation and confirmed strong grounds for both defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress claims. Ashley's significant profit from false statements about me strengthened the case considerably. The fact that she deliberately edited audio to create false impressions made it textbook defamation. Ashley attempted damage control with a tearful apology video, but it was far too late. She claimed the edited videos were just creative storytelling and insisted she never intended actual harm. She maintained that her feelings about family dynamics were genuine, even if her presentation was enhanced for entertainment value. She tried to frame herself as the real victim, claiming she was being canceled for speaking her truth about toxic family relationships. The apology video was ratioed so severely that she deleted it within 6 hours, but not before dozens of people had screen recorded it for posterity. 6 months later, Ashley's social media empire has completely crumbled, and the legal resolution exceeded my expectations. The defamation lawsuit Sarah filed resulted in a substantial settlement covering not only reputation damages but also a significant portion of profits Ashley made from her fraudulent content series. The settlement negotiations were intense. Ashley's lawyers initially tried to argue that her videos were clearly entertainment and opinion, not factual statements. However, the unedited footage proved she had deliberately manipulated audio and context to create false impressions about specific events and conversations. The breakthrough came when Sarah discovered Ashley had been using similar manipulation tactics with other family members and friends, creating fictional drama for content across multiple relationships. We weren't her only victims. She'd been systematically exploiting personal relationships for social media content for years. Ashley was required to issue a comprehensive public statement, acknowledging that her videos contained false and misleading information about me and our family relationships. The statement had to remain pinned to her social media profiles for 1 full year and include specific retractions of her most damaging claims. As part of the settlement agreement, she also had to pay $25,000 to organizations supporting elderly victims of online harassment. This wasn't optional charity. It was a mandatory condition to avoid going to trial, where damages could have been much higher. The financial impact on Ashley was devastating. Between legal fees, settlement costs, sponsor refunds, and lost income, her brief influencer career ended up costing her over $200,000. She had to sell her car, move out of her trendy downtown apartment, and take on significant debt. David filed for divorce 4 months ago. The TikTok situation revealed deeper issues in their marriage beyond social media deception, financial dishonesty, emotional manipulation, and complete disrespect for his family relationships. Ashley had been hiding credit card debt, making major purchases without consultation, and essentially treating their marriage as supporting cast for her personal brand. The divorce proceedings moved quickly since Ashley's credibility was essentially destroyed. Her attempts to claim half of David's assets were complicated by the fact that she'd been earning substantial income from defaming his family, which the court didn't view favorably. The most satisfying development was Ashley's failed attempt to monetize her downfall. She tried creating a redemption arc series about learning from mistakes and rebuilding after public disgrace. The first video, titled My Cancellation Story, The Truth About Going Viral for All the Wrong Reasons, got barely 50,000 views and was filled with comments calling her manipulative and self-serving. She attempted to rebrand as a media literacy educator, creating content about how social media can distort reality and the importance of authentic relationships. The irony was lost on no one, and the series flopped spectacularly. Her remaining followers weren't interested in supporting someone who'd built their original success on documented lies about family relationships. She moved back with her parents in Ohio and found work at a local marketing agency, making about a quarter of what she'd been earning at the peak of her influencer career. No more ring lights, no more brand partnerships, no more viral fame. Just the natural consequences of trying to destroy a family for TikTok clout and sponsored content revenue. The broader impact has been interesting to watch. Several other influencers who built their brands on family drama have been scrutinized more carefully by their audiences. Ashley's case became a cautionary tale about the ethics of monetizing, personal relationships, and the potential legal consequences of fabricating content. As for me, I've learned to be much more cautious about social media and people who weaponize it against family relationships. I still host Sunday dinners, but phones stay in a basket by the front door, a rule David enthusiastically supports. We've actually grown closer through this experience. Nothing bonds family like surviving someone's systematic attempt to destroy your relationships for internet fame. The whole situation taught me that in our social media age, anyone can become unwitting content for someone else's personal brand. Ashley turned our family dinners into raw material for her career, editing our genuine conversations into fictional drama that earned her thousands of dollars and millions of views. But it also showed me that truth has a way of surfacing, especially when someone gets careless with their lies. Ashley's accidental honesty destroyed everything she'd built on deliberate deception, and I can't say I feel sorry for her. Update. Many have asked about specific settlement amounts and whether David has started dating again. Legal agreements prevent me from sharing exact figures, but Ashley's brief influencer career ended up costing her significantly more than it ever earned. As for David, he's focusing on rebuilding trust in his own judgment before considering new relationships. Would you trust someone again after discovering they'd been secretly recording and misrepresenting your conversations for months?